I smiled while he raised his glass. Everyone expected a meltdown. He wanted a scene. Instead, I placed an envelope on the table and walked out. Inside, proof that would cost him everything. This was not a moment of weakness. It was 3 months of planning finally paid off. You can tell a life's worth of compromises in one sentence. For me, it was a toast interrupted and a paper envelope left under a napkin. The day had been planned for months. Cap and gown photos, the awkward family group hug, the proud smiles. I watched Amelia from across the restaurant, feeling an unfamiliar nervousness tighten my chest. When Gregory stood, he looked smaller than the man who once surprised me for our 10th anniversary. Now he looked like a performer who had forgotten his lines. He announced a future I wasn't invited to. I could have collapsed, thrown the champagne, cried until someone called for water. Instead, I reached into my bag, taped and quiet, and set the envelope beside his plate. It was the culmination of late nights and careful searches, bank statements copied, messages screenshotted, attorneys consulted in whispers. I told Amelia that this day was hers and left. On the sidewalk, the humid air felt like the first honest breath I'd taken in years. People would rehearse how they thought I should have acted dramatic, uncontrolled, ruined. But all those scenes belonged to movies. Real life needed something cleaner than spectacle. I drove home not to run, but to finish what I'd started. To find the accounts. To document. To prepare for a fight that would be legal, not loud. That evening, Gregory would come back to a house he expected to leave in triumph. Instead, he'd walk into consequences he hadn't priced into his fantasy. He came home angry. I sat calmly with the papers. What followed was proof he couldn't deny and a recording that made him go pale. Asterisk, some betrayals are spoken in whispers. Some are written in numbers. When Gregory burst through our front door, he expected theatrics. He found me at the kitchen table with my laptop open, not hysterical, but composed, the way accountants look over bad ledgers. He waved the envelope like a flag. "What is this?" he demanded, voice frayed between anger and embarrassment. I explained quietly, months of transfers into a separate account. Receipts for jewelry and dinners that didn't match his story. Property inquiries with his name and Cassandra's email. He sputtered about privacy, about my betrayal of trust. As if hiding your finances and lying about the mortgage were ordinary marital disagreements. Then he tried the old claim. The prenup is expired. I pulled the clause up on my phone and read it aloud. The fidelity conditions still valid. His face betrayed him. That little smirk of entitlement fell away. When he accused me of recording, I played 2 minutes of his own voice and Cassandra's. Suddenly, his bravado had a crack. It was not vindictive to protect what was ours. It was necessary. I gave him rules. Leave by tomorrow. Access limited. Take care of Amelia's feelings. He tried to frame himself as wounded, the script he'd rehearsed since last Christmas. But the facts spoke louder than his excuses. He threatened to fight. The judge listened. The preliminary hearing changed everything. Asterisk, lawyers love deadlines. Judges love facts. The courtroom felt small and precise. A drying room where reputations are measured in ink and signatures. The judge read the prenup as if reading a recipe. Deliberate, unemotional. Gregory's hurried attorney tried to play about time and implied expiration. But the document was clean. The money trail was lined in bank transfers and timestamps. The judge froze joint accounts pending discovery and gave temporary custody of the house to me under the fidelity clause. Everyone in the public gallery leaned in. Neighbors, friends, acquaintances who once smiled at our holiday table. Out in the hallway, Gregory tried to catch me, pleading for a private conversation. I walked away. There was no dramatic shouting match in the corridor. There was just the settling of a life into a new set of rules. The social ripple was immediate. Friends called to take sides. A few asked for details like vultures checking the weather. Cassandra, who'd been the background figure at our parties, learned that the romantic dream didn't come with the bank balances she expected. And for the first time in years, I felt something like clarity, not triumph exactly, but the satisfaction of truth applied like a remedy to a chronic injury. The fallout hits hard, social circles fracture, Cassandra's illusions crumble. And I begin building the one thing Gregory never took seriously, my work asterisk. People reveal themselves once the money is frozen. 2 weeks after the hearing, the social landscape shifted. Invitations dwindled for him. Messages arrived for me with offers of help. The people who once sat comfortably between us at holiday tables had to choose a side or choose silence. Cassandra called, then stopped answering. The beachfront plans evaporated. The lease she expected to be signed had never been finalized. Gregory discovered the inconvenient truth. His private account didn't hold the fortune he'd advertised. I watched him scramble as old partners withheld deals, nervous about the optics. Meanwhile, I started the work I had shelved for decades. I found a small office and a modest desk. Then clients, 2 women, who needed help untangling finances after their separations. Word of mouth moved fast. The thing that had always been private, my financial competence, became my value to others. Amelia, exhausted and guarded after the graduation drama, settled into the new normal with a mix of anger and pride. I told her what I had always wanted to tell other women: know your numbers. Not because I wanted to punish, but because the only person guaranteed to look out for you is you. Not everyone recovers in the same way. Some relationships heal. Others remain irreparably altered. Rebuilding isn't sudden. It's a series of small decisions. My consultancy began with small victories. Frozen accounts resolved into predictable budgets. Clients leaving with a plan instead of panic. I hired an assistant, then a part-time associate, and slowly expanded. The new routine was steady and honest. The town that once whispered now called for appointments. People wanted help preparing for the worst and planning for the next chapter. At home, Amelia visited with stories of her first job, bringing a sense of life continuing despite drama. Gregory, meanwhile, was a study in shrinking options. His business faltered without my oversight. Some partners pulled back. Cassandra moved on to someone with clearer finances. I felt a strange sympathy for the man who had chosen spectacle over honesty. Sympathy tempered by the knowledge that I had chosen myself. Friends who'd been silent at first now asked how I coped. I told them the same thing I told my clients: keep records, trust facts, and don't give your future away. That advice was not theoretical anymore. It was how I had reclaimed my house, my retirement, and, in a quieter but more important way, my voice. The final hearing closes one chapter. But the real ending is what you build next. The end of a marriage is a public document. The beginning of a new life is private work. The final hearing landed on what should have been our anniversary, a bitter punctuation I didn't invite but accepted. The judge reviewed discovery, the history, the pattern. In the end, the prenup held. I left the courthouse with the house, a secure portion of the investments, and the quiet right to call myself independent again. Gregory left smaller than he'd come. No beachfront, no flashy car, no Cassandra at his side anymore. The social gaslighting that had come before dissolved in paperwork and rulings. Afterward, people asked if I felt victorious. The answer was complicated. There was a small, private satisfaction in justice done. There was also exhaustion. Legal wins don't erase the erosion that secrecy causes in a family. Still, I had something he couldn't take: purpose. I threw myself into the consultancy, into teaching women how to be the financial authors of their lives, rather than characters in someone else's story. Business grew. Amelia found her path. The last scene is not revenge, it's reinvention. Revenge is the story everyone expects. Reinvention is the story I chose to tell. 6 months after the graduation spectacle, Caldwell Financial Transitions had 2 associates, a waiting list, and a reputation for steady results. My mornings began with client calls, afternoons with planning workshops, and evenings with Amelia on the phone talking about life in Charleston. The house felt like mine again, not because of locks or legal papers, but because I had filled its rooms with the work I loved. I sometimes thought about Gregory, about how men and women narrate their lives so differently. He had wanted drama. I wanted certainty. We both got what we sought, and neither was quite what we imagined. People would ask if I regretted the public moment at the restaurant. Sometimes I wished it had been less raw for Amelia. But I knew that secrecy corrodes faster than truth. I had saved my daughter from learning the whole truth on her milestone day and had given her, instead, a mother who could stand upright and model resilience. My business helped women keep their heads while the rest of their world tilted. Money, I learned, buys stability only if you understand it. Purpose buys something deeper, the ability to walk forward. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time,